Lorita Leung was born in Shanghai in 1940 to a Cantonese merchant family. The youngest of 4 siblings, she lost both of her parents at a young age and was raised by her paternal aunt, Elsie. She developed a keen interest in dance at an early age. When she was in middle school, her eldest sister, Eva, encouraged her by paying for ballet lessons with a Russian ballet master in Shanghai. In 1956, with the dream of becoming a dancer, Lorita applied to join the song and dance troupe of the Chinese People's Volunteer Army. She was accepted on the basis of her ballet training and joined the 23rd Corps. She was 15 years old. She spent 2 years living in North Korea. There, she trained and performed dance every day. She was the youngest member in the troupe of more than 60, which earned her the nickname Xiao Liang, Little Liang. Her period in Korea was a tough but joyful time in her youth. Upon withdrawal from Korea in 1958, Lorita was transferred to Harbin, where she lived for about a year. In 1959, she was transferred to the Lanzhou Military Regional Song and Dance Troupe. There, as a young outsider from Shanghai, she spent 3 very difficult years and faced many hardships. However, it was in Lanzhou that Lorita discovered her gift for teaching dance.
唔同嗰啲舞蹈，唔係舞蹈學校嗰啲當地嗰啲，好似學校裏頭舞蹈團啊，工人裏有 club 啊，會得嚟嘅歌舞團話你哋可唔可以幫我哋排個節目？咁呢個節目咧，有陣時嗰啲唔一定邊個得閒可以做，所以有陣時話邊個願意去或者你要去啦。咁我曾經我派過我去教過，咁我發現我自己對教學上高係有啲天分。我教出嚟嗰啲咧，佢哋學得好快，而且佢哋好喜歡。
Upon discharge from the Lanzhou Army, she taught for 1 term at the Lanzhou University College of Art. An internal restructuring of the program gave Lorita the opportunity to return to Shanghai. She took it without hesitation. After her return to Shanghai, Lorita taught classes at the Children's Palace. She was offered a teaching position at the newly formed Shanghai Dance School, but by then, she had already made plans to join Eva, who was living in Hong Kong. Lorita arrived in Hong Kong on February 4th, 1963. Dance was her passion and her best means of survival in a competitive city. She taught briefly at a private studio in Happy Valley, then was introduced to the Shaw Brothers Studio, the largest film production company in Hong Kong at the time. Lorita was hired as the choreographer and instructor of the Southern Drama Group Film Artists Training Program. In 1968, Rediffusion Television launched a weekly variety show named Hong Kong Showtime. Lorita accepted the role as choreographer and instructor, overseeing all dance-related segments. This began a fast-paced and hectic period where she straddled film and TV work simultaneously. In 1968, fate led her to meet her future husband, Norm Joan. Norm was an adventurous, Canadian-born Chinese from Vancouver. At the time, he was a poor university student on a solo trip around the world. He had stopped in Hong Kong to work for a few months. Both happened to be working at the Hong Kong YMCA. Lorita was teaching dance classes on weekends, and Norm was assisting with programs and providing technical support to staff. Their courtship in Hong Kong lasted around 9 months. Then Norm continued on his travels, and they corresponded by letter for over a year. On April 17, 1970, Lorita came to Vancouver to marry Norm and start a new life. At the time, the couple lived in residence at Simon Fraser University, and Lorita taught some lessons at SFU. She also appeared as a choreographer and dancer in the Vancouver productions of The King and I and The Land of Smiles, never giving up on her dream of one day founding a Chinese dance school. Lorita built her academy from very humble beginnings. She began teaching Chinese dance lessons at the Good Shepherd Church in Chinatown. Then her father-in-law, Henry, helped to build a small basement studio in her Vancouver home. Slowly, her student base grew, and Lorita started renting the recreation room at the Kerrisdale Community Center on Sundays. In 1976, Lorita and Norm welcomed their daughter, Jessica. Like Lorita, Jessica showed a love of dance at an early age. Before long, the family unit would spend time together promoting Chinese dance, Lorita choreographing and directing, Jessica dancing on stage, and Norm acting as MC and videographer. The 1980s was a busy decade of expansion for Lorita's troupe, now called the Lorita Leung Dancers. In the mid-1980s, she rented a studio on West 7th Avenue. It was home to many happy times. 1984 marked the founding of the Lorita Leung Dance Association, a registered Canadian charity dedicated to the promotion, preservation, and enhancement of Chinese dance in Canada. 1984 also marked the Lorita Leung Dancers' first China tour at the invitation of the Chinese Department of External Affairs. In 1986, the Lorita Leung Dancers premiered their landmark dance drama, Gold Mountain. Inspired by the plight of early Chinese immigrants to British Columbia, Gold Mountain marked the beginning of Lorita's search for a uniquely Chinese-Canadian perspective in dance. The Lorita Leung Dancers toured China for a second time in 1988. In 1989, they were invited to perform at the opening of Ottawa's Museum of Civilization. Some of the troupe's costumes appeared on display as part of the museum's inaugural collection. In 1990, with the help of her good friend Ruby Kwong, Lorita bought her own studio in Richmond. Her lifelong dream finally had a permanent home. The 1990s brought more expansion and development for the Lorita Leung Dancers, which had now grown into the Lorita Leung Dance Academy. The dancers toured 2 more times to China in 1991 and 1994. They also did a charity tour to Taiwan in 1997. In 1993, one of the most important developments for Chinese dance in North America took place. The Lorita Leung Dance Association signed a partnership with the Beijing Dance Academy to bring Madame Sun Guangyan's Chinese dance graded examination syllabus to Canada. This changed the course of the Lorita Leung Dance Academy and introduced students to a thorough and systematic method of learning Chinese dance in Canada. Lorita's lifelong dedication to Chinese dance didn't go unnoticed.
加拿大建国125周年的那个勋章是英女皇特种的勋章，我都非常吃惊，我没想到会拿到这个。后来又过了几年，我跟我女儿一起的，那么她就一共是选了有8位吧，对社会艺术里面有贡献的。那我跟 Jessica 我女儿2个就得到了这个太阳报，有100个就是对社会有影响，不就是妇女，就是不同的工作人员，全领域男女都有。那么她也有我一份，我觉得也很荣幸。所以只要你有贡献，他们都认可你的，他们都非常赞扬你。
The early 2000s were a tumultuous time for Lorita and the school, and proved to be the ultimate test of her grit and resilience. A sudden upheaval caused by one of her closest friends nearly brought her school to the brink of closure.
那个时候我没有放弃，我要从头开始，因为我要让他们看这个学校是我自己努力来的，不是因为他帮了我以后，所以我的学校才有这个成绩。
But Lorita was a survivor. She had come such a long way in pursuit of her dream, and she wasn't about to give up. From rock bottom, steadied by the support of Norm and Jessica, who took over most of the classes, the family began to rebuild the school over the next decade. With balance regained, the Academy celebrated its 35th anniversary, then 40th and 45th, with many milestones in between. With mother and daughter working side by side, the Academy was rebranded and rebuilt once again. Upon decades of history, experience, and drive, it became something Lorita was truly proud of. Then, in 2017, Lorita suffered her greatest loss. Norm passed away after a 4-year illness. He was her rock, her harbor, and her shelter from the storms of life. She had dedicated 4 years to being his caregiver, withdrawing from actively running the studio. His passing had a devastating effect on her. Throughout this difficult time, Jessica was supported by her husband, Chung-Shin Wei, and a team of close-knit and dedicated faculty members and friends. Together, they kept the Academy on course, and it continued to grow and thrive. Plans were underway for the Academy's big 50th anniversary celebration, scheduled for May 2020, when the global pandemic hit. The Academy was forced to shut down operations for 7 months. Lorita and Jessica used this moment as an opportunity to do a complete renovation of the 30-year-old studio. Despite challenges and setbacks brought on by the pandemic, the Academy emerged from the shadow of the pandemic stronger than before. Lorita began to reconnect with the Chinese community in the Lower Mainland, having stayed out of the spotlight for over a decade. The last few years of Lorita's life were very happy ones. She saw her childhood dream come into fruition and exceed her own expectations.
你看我学校上了好几层楼，我觉得其实就是天命吧。我说这一辈子做人，我老是跟人说，坚持就是胜利，坚持就是胜利，坚持就是胜利。
She happily passed her torch to Jessica and Chung-Shin with full confidence that her life's work and legacy will continue under their guidance and direction. Born out of a dream, through her decades of passion and perseverance, and by the virtue of who she was, her kindness, her bravery, her generosity, and her compassion, Lorita Leung built a village for herself and for all those who came after her.
我是梁淑华，我人在路上，我人在路上。